So today, we're going to dive into two of the absolute wildest flying machines ever dreamed up. One's a wooden giant from the 1940s, and the other, a steel behemoth that's supposed to take us to Mars. We're talking almost 80 years apart, but they're connected by this just monumental, almost crazy ambition. It's a heck of a story about vision, obsession, and the massive gamble you take when you decide to build something that big. Just listen to that. That's Howard Hughes talking to a very skeptical Senate committee back in 1947. You can just feel the pressure. For him, this wasn't just about building an airplane. Nope. He was betting his entire reputation, his whole legacy, on whether this thing could fly. And it's that kind of all-or-nothing bet that really ties these two incredible projects together across the decades. Okay, so on one side you've got the Hughes H-4 Hercules. Everybody knows it as the Spruce Goose, this massive flying boat made to haul tanks across the Atlantic. And on the other side, SpaceX's Starship, a rocket so tall it looks like science fiction, built to go to other planets. When you see them like this, you have to ask the exact same question for both of them. Are these visionary masterpieces, or are they just magnificent follies?
And really, that's the core question we're looking at today. Both of these projects come from a very specific mindset, something our source material has a great name for: disruptive megalomania. Now, this isn't just about building something huge for bragging rights. It's a whole philosophy. It's the idea that if you really want to shatter the old way of doing things, you have to aim for a scale that is so enormous, it just looks like a flat-out mistake to everyone else. It's a bet that sheer, overwhelming size can literally rewrite the rules of the game. Okay, so this gets us to the first big connection between these two giants. They both relied on what you could call a brute force strategy, a core belief that sometimes bigger really is better. Both Hughes and Elon Musk kind of made the same bet, that they could muscle their way through tough engineering problems just by adding more power and more scale. But here's the catch. This creates what our source calls a complexity tax. See, with every single engine or part you add, the number of things that can go wrong just explodes. For Starship, that's 33 engines on the booster that all have to work together perfectly. It's a brutal lesson the Soviets learned with their N-1 moon rocket, which had 30 engines and just kept blowing up. And to really get a feel for the scale we're talking about, just look at the Spruce Goose. Its wingspan was wider than a football field. For more than 70 years, it was the biggest wingspan on any aircraft that ever flew. It was, without a doubt, an absolute giant. But yeah, that record doesn't stand today. Stacked up on its booster, Starship is over 400 feet tall. That makes it the biggest and most powerful flying machine humanity has ever built. Period. The brute force gamble is definitely alive and well. And when you put them side by side like this, man, it really shows you the leap in ambition. The Spruce Goose was trying to solve a huge earthbound problem, carry 750 soldiers or a couple of tanks. Starship's goal is, well, it's extraterrestrial. It's trying to get over 100 metric tons to orbit. And the engines tell the story too. 8 massive piston engines for the Goose versus a mind-boggling 39 Raptor engines for the whole Starship stack. Each one was built to be the undisputed heavy-lift champ of its time. It wasn't just about being the biggest thing in the sky. It was also about what they were made of. And that leads to our second big parallel. Both of them chose materials that pretty much the entire industry thought were just wrong. Think about it. Back in an era when everyone was switching to aluminum for planes, Howard Hughes builds his behemoth out of wood. You heard that right, a special kind of laminated birch. Fast forward to today, the entire aerospace world is obsessed with lightweight carbon composites, and what does Elon Musk do? He switches to stainless steel. Each choice was totally against the grain. Hughes said wood was lighter and stronger for what he was doing, but wow, what a nightmare to maintain. And Musk's argument is that steel is cheap, tough, and can handle the heat of re-entry, even if it makes the rocket incredibly heavy. Okay, so this leads to a really interesting point: the guys behind the machines. Both projects were driven by these powerful, polarizing leaders, and that intense, single-minded focus might have created a huge blind spot. And this is where that single-minded vision can get you into trouble. Hughes was so obsessed with perfecting his giant flying boat that he completely missed what was happening around him. The jet engine was coming. The world was building massive concrete runways. He ended up building the perfect answer to a question nobody was asking anymore. His creation was basically obsolete before it even took off. Which of course means we have to ask the same thing about Starship.
Is it making a similar gamble? Critics will point to a couple of things. First, this unbelievably complicated idea of refueling a spaceship in orbit, which has never been done on this scale. And second, there's the whole trend of miniaturization. You know, if satellites and probes keep getting smaller and more efficient, do we really need a monster rocket that can lift 100 tons? Or is it a solution in search of a problem? Look, you can't build something this crazy without a mountain of cash. And that brings us to our final comparison. The money behind these dreams, and the intense public pressure that comes when you're spending that kind of money. So the way they got their money was different, but the heat from the public was the same. The Spruce Goose was funded by a direct government contract, which led to those Senate hearings where politicians called it a flying lumberyard. Starship is more of a hybrid. It's got private money, but also billions in contracts from NASA. And this leads to an incredible level of risk. If Starship doesn't work, NASA's big Artemis mission to the moon, well, it has no plan B. I mean, think about that. There is no backup lander. The stakes for America's entire space program couldn't be higher. The numbers are just staggering. The Spruce Goose cost around $253 million in today's money, which is a ton. But then you look at Starship, and it's a whole different ballgame. SpaceX has already poured over $3 billion into just the Starbase facility. And on top of that, NASA's given them a contract for almost another $3 billion for the Artemis lander. These aren't just company projects anymore. These are national-level investments. So we know how this story ends for one of these giants, right? And its legacy is the perfect frame for looking at the future of the other one, a future that's still being written. One flight. After all those years, all that money, all that controversy, one single flight. And that one flight, it lasted just 26 seconds. It barely got 70 feet off the water. After that, Howard Hughes basically hid it away in a special climate-controlled hangar with a full-time crew for decades. Eventually, it became what it is today, a legendary museum piece. A magnificent artifact for sure, but an artifact nonetheless. Starship's story, though, is playing out totally differently. They're doing it all out in the open with this test, fly, fail, repeat philosophy. You see the spectacular explosions, and then you see the game-changing successes. It's already flown multiple times and has pulled off things that seemed impossible, like catching that super heavy booster with giant arms. This constant public progress already makes its story completely different from the Spruce Goose's. So that leaves us with the big final question. Both of these machines were born from that same wild, disruptive, megalomaniacal ambition. One became a legend, a symbol of what's possible, even when you don't fully succeed. So what about the other one? Is Starship going to be the thing that actually carries humanity to the stars, or is it destined to become the 21st century's most ambitious and most expensive museum exhibit? I guess we'll have to wait and see.